Welcome to the Team Sammy podcast. I'm Samuel DeVries, the host, and this is a show where I really just sit back, talk about the NFL, or sometimes specifically the Lions. Enjoy. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. It's been a very long time since I've done this, 14 months. My last video dealt with the Lions' divisional round loss to the Washington Commanders. And obviously, that was a long time ago. The Lions are coming off of a season where they finished 9-8, fourth in the North, failed to reach the postseason, and here we are 3 days into free agency for 2026, and I'm here to tell you why it is pretty uninspiring so far. This is just my take. I'm a 21-year-old kid who just watches the games. I have no media credentials, nor am I have any football playing experience to where you should feel like everything that I say is true. So take what I have to say with a grain of salt, but here goes. All right, so I've got up in front of me the Lions free agency tracker off a Twitter account that is very helpful to kind of just visualize what's going on. First thing I want to talk about is just the overall frustration with what I have with management's inability to build a secondary. You look back, the 2013 NFL draft class is known as one of the worst in recent memory. A couple of gems in there. I know DeAndre Hopkins came out of there. And one of the more notable players was a second-round pick by the name of Darius Slay. Out of Mississippi State. Lions got him, I think, in the 40s. And the Lions were able to I don't think he really played much at all as a rookie, so I can't really say if he struggled as a rookie. I just don't really remember him playing. Then again, I was in third grade. So my memory of that is probably not the best. But what I know is soon after we were able to develop him into quite a strong cornerback. You had him. Rasheed Mathis was on some of those teams in the mid-2010s, and then you got Glover Quinn anchoring the safety room back there. It was a great defense, and Darius Slay was a great player for the Lions. I think he led the NFL in interceptions at least 1 year. I think he was a first-team All-Pro twice in Detroit, and then we ended up shipping him out after he had a lot of disagreements with Matt Patricia and some of the other Lions defensive coaches. After the 2019 season, we shipped him out during the pandemic for a third and fifth round pick. Horrible trade. I think that third round pick turned into Julian Okwara. So obviously the Lions do not win that trade in any way. But Lions once again had a horrendous secondary this year, led by the struggles of DJ Reed, Terrion Arnold, and then the Legion of Whom, with a lot of injuries that kind of went down. And you take a look, the Lions did today re-up Rock Yassin. I think it was just a 1-year deal. But the Lions also lost Amik Robertson in the nickel, who he was good more so in 2024 than 2025. The infamous Week 18 game where he locked up Justin Jefferson. I will remember that forever. An unbelievable game. He's headed over to Washington. And so kind of my concern is, like, what is the Lions' plan for how they're going to run this secondary in 2026? The reason I bring up Darius Slay to begin this is he's the last cornerback the Lions have developed. You look at some other guys the Lions have drafted. I don't even want to, it's not good at all. Quandre Diggs was a Lions draft pick. He was traded midseason 2019 maybe. Traded midseason to Seattle, where he became a Pro Bowler. He was not that in Detroit. The second we shipped him off, Seattle was able to maximize his talents. I think they moved him maybe to the nickel or something. The Lions weren't playing him where they needed to play him. He gets shipped off. He becomes a great player in Seattle. Third overall in 2020, the Lions take Jeff Okudah. Not a good draft pick, not really a good player. He had that interception against Arizona in Week 3 of his rookie year, and that was where, I was 15, and I thought he was going to be great after that. You look back on that play, it was just an underthrown ball. That's an interception for any NFL cornerback. There was nothing special about that. He kind of was turning it up a little bit by the time it was his last year in Detroit, 2022. He had that notable pick six off Justin Fields, but that was really a play made by Aiden Hutchinson blowing up the screen pass. But you got Jeff Okudah, obviously, who didn't develop, and then you got Terrion Arnold. I hope he can play. Obviously, he's got some criminal stuff going on right now where he potentially was involved in like some sort of armed, I don't know if it was really armed robbery, but like armed get back at a guy who had robbed him or something, whatever. Excuse me. But yeah, even from what we have seen from Terrion Arnold, it's not been great. He did play a little bit better toward the end of this year, or not toward the end, but like toward like the middle. Obviously, he missed a lot to end the year. Yeah, DJ Reed, who's under contract for a couple more years, and then Rock Ya-Sin, who had played very well toward the end of the year. Obviously, he had to step up with some missing pieces, and then he's not a nickel corner; he's a boundary corner. So you're looking at potentially Reed, Arnold, Rock Ya-Sin, and then who you got in the nickel? Brian Branch is missing the first 8 weeks at least. And even then, when he comes back, it's an Achilles injury. Is he going to be effective? I don't know. I think he will be. I like to think he would be, but probably at least not right away. But anyway, so you got Ennis Rakestraw playing the nickel. Rakestraw, Lions took him pick 61, 62 out of Missouri. Same class as Terrion Arnold. And he played very limited his rookie year. That's already a red flag because, again, the Lions secondary his rookie year, not good. It's not like he didn't have a road to get on the field. I guess they did have Carlton Davis, but still, Carlton Davis broke his jaw. There was plenty of opportunity for Rakestraw to get on the field more than he did. He did not take advantage of that. And then obviously he missed all of last year, so you can't fault him for that. But are we really going to trust a guy to come in his third year, technically his third year, second year as like a guy who's able to play, and instantly step up and play a significant part in a Lions secondary that is already prone to being weak in the past? I've already brought up the facts that this Lions coaching regime can't develop any sort of man coverage player for the life of them, yet this team does not stop playing man coverage. Since Paul Pasqualoni was calling the plays in 2019, this team's not stopped playing man coverage. And you can say they've developed secondary pieces, Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch. Now, to be fair, Brian Branch, his type of skill set, more of like a very hard-hitting safety, great in pursuit. Those aren't traits that really – those are more easy to kind of develop coming out of college. So I feel like he would have been developed on any team. And Kirby Joseph took him a couple years, but he's more of like a lurking deep safety, kind of in a high zone who can kind of drop down and get you an interception. Kirby Joseph's not playing man coverage. Also, Kirby Joseph might never play again. Didn't mention that with his knee cartilage issues. But the point is, we're going to have the starting nickel be a guy who has never played more than, 10 snaps in a game, run by guys who cannot develop man coverage players with a defense that runs 70% man coverage. What are we doing? What is the outlook with this? What is the vision with this? Why would you let Amik Robertson go unless if you have a bona fide plan for who's going to replace him in the nickel? And you can say, Samuel, why don't the Lions could draft a corner? Everything that I've just told you is exactly why drafting a corner does you no good. Who have the Lions developed out of the secondary? The reason I brought up Darius Slay at the very top of this was because he's the last example of a guy that the Lions were able to develop, and he was taken 13 years ago. So there's a lot to be frustrated with the outlook of the Lions secondary. And again, these are situations where neither Kirby Joseph nor Brian Branch is going to start the year. Branch will be on the pup. Maybe by the grace of God, you'll see Kirby Joseph starting the year playing. But you're going to have a weak secondary unit. Let's just say, devil's advocate, let's say Terrion Arnold gets arrested. He's not on this team. Okay. You got DJ Reed, Yeah, Rock Yassin. Yeah, Ennis Rakestraw playing the nickel. Who's even in the safety room? Thomas Harper? Thomas Harper was one of the worst run-defending safeties, one of the worst games from a safety in terms of his run defense I've ever seen. If you go back and watch that Lions game against Pittsburgh toward the end of last year. Who was it? I can't think of the name of that running back who should never have any breakout runs, who ran it all over the Lions. And part of that was the poor pursuit angles of Thomas Harper. Now, a lot of that is also issues up front, issues with the linebackers. But the point is, if you're able to break through the front seven, a guy like Brian Branch, a guy like Kirby Joseph is going to come in and level you, and it's a 10-yard gain and not a 50-yard house call. It was, I think, Kenneth Gainwell is who I think that was. That's what was happening, though, we were giving up those house calls with Thomas Harper on the field. So the week one outlook for this team, unless if Brad Holmes goes out and signs somebody else or trades for somebody, he'll never trade for somebody. That's not happening. We know that's not happening. This Lions secondary is looking horrible. Now, to be fair, other areas of the defense do look a little bit strong. Kind of, actually. Yeah, honestly, not even really. Okay, so you got the first-team All-Pro Mike and Jack Campbell, whatever. Jack Campbell's pass coverage is still suspect at best. Unbelievable run defender. Unbelievable at filling the gaps. You can't break a tackle of Jack Campbell. Great pursuit. Great blitzer, too. You kind of think back to that fourth and goal sack in Week 3 against Baltimore. Unbelievable play. Whole Lions defense played great in that series where they were backed up inside their own 5, or inside our own 5 defending, rather. Jack Campbell had that great kind of, looked like he was like kind of dropped back to where he was kind of in coverage enough, and then at the last second was able to blitz and knock the ball free out of Lamar Jackson's hands. That was a great play because that's what Jack Campbell brings to the table. What Jack Campbell doesn't bring to the table is the ability to match a guy in man coverage, which the Lions, if any time they're in some sort of cover zero look, if he's not blitzing, he's alone in man. That doesn't happen a lot. But even then, the Lions, because they run zone so little, rather, I don't know what the correct grammar is there, Jack Campbell often can look a little bit lost out there in his pass coverage. You lose Anzalone to Tampa, good riddance. I'm happy to see Anzalone go. He's a crybaby on Twitter. I'm also a crybaby, but I hide behind an alias, and you have no idea who I am, but this guy is a public figure, an NFL player. Everybody knows who he is. Whatever. But, so I don't care about that. Yeah, you get Malcolm Rodriguez back. Good depth piece. Derek Barnes was extended, I think, last offseason. You still have him. I don't know what the deal with Trevor Nowaski is. I think he's still going to be on the roster. I've not heard of anything. Let me pull this up. Maybe he's an impending free agent. Yeah, it says, okay, so Grant Stewart and Zach Cunningham are the linebackers who are impending free agents. Neither of those guys played really anything notable for the linebacking room, but I would love to see the Lions go out and get some sort of off-ball linebacker who can cover well. I don't really know who that would be. I'm not incredibly familiar with the linebacking free agency class here, nor am I very familiar with the linebackers who are in the draft. Because now that I'm in college and not high school, I can't really track. I don't have the time on my hands to track every single college prospect coming out and know what they're good at and know what the red flags are or anything. So I'm not like incredibly familiar with what we could do there in terms of the linebackers. You look at the D-line, Aiden Hutchinson, one of the best in theory players of all time. You watch an Aiden Hutchinson game, and you're kind of like, man, he's getting bottled up this game. I don't really know where's Aiden Hutchinson? I don't see him. And then you go read the PFF grades the next day, and he's got like a 90 PFF grade, and he's credited with like 15 pressures. You read something, and it's like most in ... whatever, pressures in a game. I'm making that up. I don't even know if he's ever had something like that. But the in terms of breaking a record, but I know he gets credited with pressures all the time. And you go, when? When he in theory is getting to the quarterback a lot or disrupting things a lot. I don't see it. I don't see it with my own two eyes as I'm watching. You go look the two games where he really had an impact this past year. It was Christmas against Minnesota, where that spin move was a 10 out of 10 spin move, and he was really effective with that. He was making a lot of things happen with that. And then the Baltimore game, but in fairness, everybody had a great game getting after Lamar. Al-Qudim Muhammad, I think, had 3 sacks. Another guy, by the way, who the Lions should bring back, Al-Qudim Muhammad. But you look opposite Aiden Hutchinson, who's rushing the passer? No idea. And you might be thinking, well, maybe you can get some pressure from the interior. All right, so Levi Onwuzurike didn't play at all last year. He's coming back. He's looked good in flashes. By the way, the Lions also released Josh Paschal today, so there's another guy. He was never going to make an impact anyway. Horrible second-round pick. But you got two guys, the two D tackles you think of on this team. Aleem McNeil. We really trust in Aleem McNeil. He looked horrible coming back from injury. Now, obviously, with a full healthy offseason in front of him, maybe he can get back to a lot of what he was before, like what he was to earn the extension that he's got. Most overpaid player in the league, by the way, Aleem McNeil. And then the will-be second-year player, Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State. I think Tyleik Williams is going to be great. I think he's going to be a great player. He just didn't play a lot last year. But the problem there is you have 2 nose tackles. First of all, nose tackle, least valuable position on the defensive line. And secondly, you can't have 2 nose tackles on the field at once. All nose tackles do are eat up blocks to kind of like force multiple linemen to get into them to open up the gaps for a guy like Jack Campbell to come crashing down and get a tackle for a loss. Those guys are like the point guards of the defensive of like the pass rush, where they're taking on like point guards. All they're doing is dishing out assists. They're not scoring themselves. That's exactly what the nose tackles do. They eat up the blocks for everybody else to be effective. Why do you have 2 of those guys? And it's not like you can get out of either one of them either. You got the most overpaid player in football and then a first-round pick. The Lions are never going to move off of a first-round pick, at least not this quickly, and especially not by a guy taken by this regime. They obviously have a plan for him. They took him in the first round. So, and what? Maybe you could move Tyleik Williams to be a 3 technique. I feel like I'd know if that was going to happen. I've seen 0 reports of him like cutting weight or like working on being more of a pass rush specialist. There's been none of that out there. So as far as I'm concerned, the Lions have 2 nose tackles plus Levi Onwuzurike and only 1 edge defender in Aiden Hutchinson. So I think I've broken down pretty much all the defense. That sounds like a bottom 5 defense in football. The last time that happened was 2023, the year the Lions went and played for the conference championship against San Francisco. And how did the Lions combat that? They outscored everybody and had an easy schedule. Now, to be fair, the Lions still had a top 5 offense in football last year, even with the absence of Ben Johnson. And this year, they got a real light schedule. So could they, in theory, kind of repeat what they did in 2023? Maybe. In fact, I would say it's definitely not outside the realm of possibility. But you look at teams who make Super Bowl runs, they always have good defenses. And even if they don't have a good defense, they have a defense that's like can suffice, like a 16th ranked defense, a middle of the pack defense. The only team I'm thinking of like that I can think of off the top of my head that was like this defense is an active liability on the team, yet they still won the Super Bowl, would be the 2009 Saints. That was a long, long time ago. I was 4. So obviously, you can't look at this defense and be like the Lions are able to win the Super Bowl with this defense. They're not. And if Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell think that this is good enough, well, that's when you start having some problems. Or maybe Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes look at this and say, we know our defense is weak, we'll outscore everybody. You have already proven that you can't do that. You tried to do that. weren't able to do it. The second half defensive collapse against the 49ers showed that, yes, this team needs to have a defense. Allowing 45 points to Washington at home against a rookie quarterback shows that you need a defense to be successful. And you go look at the Seahawks, who have an unbelievable defense. Sorry, my computer shut off for a minute. You look at Seattle, who has an unbelievable defense. They kind of came out of nowhere, and they still had a good offense. Obviously, JSN won Offensive Player of the Year, whatever. But not an offense to the caliber of the Detroit offense. And they were able to go out there and go toe-for-toe against every team in football and win the Super Bowl. It's defense that matters. I don't know if this regime here right now in Detroit has been able to grasp that. You go look to the offense. I'm not concerned in any way. Sam Laporta will be back and ready to go. This team played half the year without Sam Laporta and was still very, very effective. There were some games out there where, like the Minnesota game on Christmas, I think they scored 10 points, and even their touchdown drive was all just like third and long conversions, not sustainable things. And then the Pittsburgh game, their offense came alive when it absolutely needed to at the end of the game. Whatever. There were some duds in there when this Lions team, prior to this season under Dan Campbell, never had offensive duds. The offense was out and firing every single game, every single play, would never disappoint. So there's kind of that with the Lions offense that, yeah, maybe they've got the potential to lay an egg, which again with this defense, if the offense is never ready to play, they're going to lose. It's just going to happen. But so obviously Laporta's coming back. Jameson Williams. I mentioned Ali McNeil being the most overpaid player in football. How about Jameson Williams being maybe the most underpaid player in football if you're counting players who have been extended? Amon-Ra St. Brown, a little bit of problem with the drops, whatever. I'm not concerned about that. David Montgomery's gone. I'm fine with that because you get Juice Scruggs. I'll talk about the offensive line in a minute. Couple of picks. And then you go out and you sign Isaiah Pacheco for 1.5 maybe. Very good deal there. I don't anticipate him getting much more than like 60 or 70 carries this year. This will be the Jahmyr Gibbs show. This will be, I guess that kind of works, the Jahmyr Gibbs season. It'll be all Gibbs. I would love to see him get 300 carries, kind of see what happens with that. Unless if it's you can tell early in the year that the offensive line's not going to be run blocking, whatever, then maybe not. Then maybe kind of go back to the Jared Goff, throw it 50 times a game, whatever. And even if the line can't run block, the Lions were great at doing either screens or just swing passes to Gibbs, any way to get him in space, and he's just unreal. What else? Yeah, I mean, Isaiah Pacheco probably not going to be a factor. Jared Goff is not really at the age where I'm not concerned about any sort of arm strength type of regression. Obviously, he's only going to get slower, but he's already the slowest quarterback in the game, so that does not matter to me at all. All right, the offensive line. This is where there becomes a problem. Penei Sewell, I'm going to assume, is going to play left tackle. There you go. Best left tackle in the league. We've got that figured out. I forget. I honestly, this is where people would say I'm not a ball knower. I kind of forget if Tate Ratledge was a left or right guard. But you got Tate Ratledge, who I think played pretty well for a second-round rookie. I only expect him to get better. He will be anchoring up as one of the guards, and I'll say Mahogany is going to be the other guard. And then newly signed, great signing, by the way, Cade Mays over from Carolina will be playing at center, which allows a guy like Ratledge to stay at guard, which is better suited for him. And Cade Mays, not the best run blocker, but a tremendous pass blocker. But the Lions had so many problems pass blocking for Goff last year, specifically up the middle. You look all the way back to week 1. The Packers had Micah Parsons lining up, snap count Micah Parsons, by the way. He was not playing every snap. He was playing half the snaps, maybe. They had Micah Parsons lining up over the center, and he was getting home. He was effective. Those were actual pressures. Like, I made fun of Aiden Hutchinson's pressures where you don't really see him, but you don't see him in game, but then you see him after. Those Micah Parsons pressures were very adamant what was happening. You could see him right in front of your own two eyes, even if he wasn't the one getting the sack or if Goff had to throw the ball away, check it down, etc. That was a guy who could bully the interior of an offensive line. The Lions' interior offensive line, very easy to bully. Hopefully with a guy like Cade Mays, you kind of shore that up. Now, again, Cade Mays really has only 1 year of starting, so hopefully it doesn't just all fall apart. I don't think it will, but it's not outside the realm of possibility that you take one look at this guy and you're like, okay, this is a problem. He's not good. I don't think that'll happen, but it certainly could. So obviously the two guards I talked about, the center, Panay playing left tackle. Who on earth is the right tackle? Why did we not sign Braden Smith? Man, that would have been a great signing. Lions, if you need a new GM or a guy who can be a special assistant to Brad Holmes, I don't know. I'm here. Because that seemed like a layup to me, low-hanging fruit of a guy to go after. Now, I think there's potential to where the Lions will go out and use their first-round pick on a tackle. In fact, that's probably what I think is going to happen. And the Lions have done great at drafting tackles in the past. Taylor Decker, obviously gone, and he wasn't really developed by a lot of the coaching staff that's here because he was drafted 10 years ago, but Penei Sewell was. And Tate Ratledge played pretty well for a rookie guard, obviously not a tackle, but still on the O-line. Mahogany was great value, found in the 5th round. Now, you do look at a guy like Giovanni Manu, where you traded multiple picks for him, and you're like, what on earth was that? And then I think it was the Washington game where he started because Decker wasn't playing. And he would have a couple reps. He'd have a couple reps out there where he's like, man, this dude's a wall. You can't get around him. And then he'd have a rep where it's like he forgot what he was doing. Like he forgot he was on a football field and Goff was instantly hit. From the blind side, too. Manu was playing left tackle that game. So, God forbid it be Caden Proctor, who the Lions take. Again, I've already mentioned that I'm not very familiar with a lot of the upcoming draft prospects, but what I do know is Caden Proctor is dog water. Can Juice Scruggs play tackle? I'm going to guess probably not. If you struggle playing guard in the NFL, you're not going to be able to play tackle at all. It just moves so much faster. I don't know what the arm length situation is on Scruggs. I'm assuming he'll just be a depth piece. I also, the Lions signed one more tackle type. Who was it? Borum from Miami. I don't know who that is. I don't know what he's done. I'm going to assume he's just going to be a depth piece. I think his name's Larry Borum. If we go into the year with this dude starting, then just wrap it up. The season's over. But yeah, so that's really my look for the Lions this year. Is I think they'll be able to score a lot of points. The offense is going to be very similar. With it running through Jahmyr Gibbs, I think is going to be the number one offensive weapon. Jamison Williams, I think, is going to be just as heavily utilized as Amon-Ra St. Brown. Sam Laporta, even though he statistically is not always going to pop off the screen, he still draws the defense unlike any other fourth option on a team you will ever see. And Jared Goff with time is unreal. He's a very, very good player with time. And that's really the only question mark with the offense is, will Jared Goff have time? I think he'll have, I don't know if this team is not going to have a top 5 offensive line like it did in 23 or 24, or even 22 for that matter. But I don't think it'll be outside the top 20 like what it was for most of last year. I think it'll be back inside that top 15 range. Is that going to give Goff time enough to look like an MVP candidate? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes, it is. Especially with that weak schedule. I love playing Arizona instead of either Seattle, LA, or San Francisco. Have fun with that. Rest of the North. We get what is essentially a free win with a team that doesn't have a quarterback. Now, And then again, you look at the defense, secondary. I don't know what on earth's going to happen with that. And then there's really no part of the team that's or part of the defense that's complete. You got great players here and there. I kind of trashed on Aiden Hutchinson for a little bit, but he is a great player still. And so is Jack Campbell, a little one-dimensional with Campbell, but he's still a great player. And I have faith that DJ Reed can be a good CB1 like he was in New York for a couple of years. But overall, I think we're looking at a roster that, if they had last year's schedule, probably wins 8 or 9 games. With this year's schedule, I think can win up to 12 games. I don't know if that's actually going to be good enough to win the division. But I think it'll be probably enough to grab the 5 seed, probably be the top wild card. And if that's the case, beat whoever wins the NFC South in the wild card and probably get bounced in the divisional by a team that's just better than them. And you know why that's going to happen? Because a one-dimensional Lions team, the one dimension being their offense, is going to run into a San Francisco or LA type of team where they are unbelievable on offense and unbelievable on defense. The Rams, again, the type of team that sees that maybe they've got a little bit of a weakness and they're like, hey, F them picks. Let's go trade a couple and get Trent McDuffie and just completely change the outlook of our entire secondary. Because now we have a true CB1 and a guy you don't have to worry about if he's out on an island against any sort of top caliber wide receiver. So that's exactly what's going to happen. Is the Lions, they're going to return to the playoffs, and I'm going to be really happy about that. I'm going to be really excited. I'm going to gaslight myself into thinking this team is going to be able to go out there and go on a run and go to the Super Bowl, which they've never done. And again, the way I said it, they'll probably win in the wild card. Even if they're on the road, they'll probably match up against a team that won a weak division, and they'll be able to win that game, and then they'll go out and they'll lose by 2 scores. I don't think they'll ever get blown out because, again, that offense is going to keep them in games. The Lions are kind of blowout-proof almost in a way because of just how quickly they can score if they really need to. So, but that's exactly what's going to happen in the divisional round is they're going to run into a team that's just that's more well-built than they are. And they're going to get bounced. So, and again, this is all pre-draft stuff. This is merely 3 days into free agency. But that's kind of my current outlook with what the Lions are looking like right now. So I know this will go out to essentially nobody. Nobody's going to see this. But if you do see this, drop a comment of what you think I've had to say. If you think I'm an idiot, tell me. I don't care. I don't care about what you have to say. I do this to get my thoughts out. What I think is going to happen. So, follow me on Twitter at, what even is my at? Golden Taint III. I tweet about the Lions, the Tigers, Michigan basketball, sometimes politics, not as much anymore because stuff. So, that's my general outlook with the Lions right now. And I will see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.